This is for any beginner knitters like me who are struggling to get started because a lot of the tutorials you find online are really too difficult. So I'm pretty much just posting this for myself so future me remembers what on earth I did for next time. It's far from polished, but maybe it'll help another beginner. So take it easy on me. Don't follow it too closely, but who knows, maybe it will help. Best of luck. I am using a combination of merino and cotton and mohair, but you can just use one ball of wool and a circular needle. And to begin with, you don't use it as a circular needle. You just use it as regular needles, but the circular aspect comes in later. And I began by casting on, I'm making a size medium, so this is 59 stitches. And when you firstly cast on, that cast on row is not counted as row 1. It's not counted as a row. So after I cast on, I stockinette stitched, which means purl on one side and knit on the other, 38 stitches. And the row counter kind of helped, but I wasn't entirely sure that I kept count properly, so I did use a measuring tape and the measurements are in the pattern. The next step after you've done 38 rows here is to, it says in the pattern, to stitch 14 rows in total. I found that really confusing. It's 14 rows of row 1 and 2 pairs. So in other words, it's 28 individual rows and 14 paired rows. And the M1R and the M1L make one more stitch on the left and the right. This is the shoulder shaping kind of formation it looks like. For the time being, I've removed my circular needle and I have threaded this twine through my stitches just to hold them there for now. I have picked up 6 stitches here for the left shoulder. When I created these new stitches, I used the short end of the yarn, and now I've pulled my circular needles through to the other side, and now I have my long end of the yarn to begin knitting on the right side. So quite unbelievably, I have managed to include the German short rows, which is this wedge shape here. If I can do it, you can do it. It's probably helpful to see what the underside of this left shoulder looks like. So you can actually see that little wedge, that little triangle. That's the German short rows. And this is the kind of invisible seam. I can't believe I did it. Biggest achievement of my life. I'm now working on the V-neck section, and every 4th row you need to make one more stitch, which I keep my little sheet there, which makes sense to me in terms of how to remember to do it. And I make sure I use the markers because I don't trust myself to keep count, and I also use the row counter. I have noticed that there's a little hole where I've done the stitch increases, and I tried to look that up and find out what the problem is, but I think it's normal, so I'm just going to move on. So there are 8 sets of 4 rows here, which amounts to 32 rows for the V part of the left shoulder. Here is the increase of the armhole stage now. Definitely needed to put these markers on or I would have lost count, and I also kept the row counter happening, and now I've tied off my stitches to rest. This is the stitches that are resting at the moment, so the opposite side to my right shoulder where I'm going to be picking up stitches from. But to work out how you pick up stitches, I look at these 2 stitches here and here, and I know that I go in between, and that's the spot I pick up from, but at the other end. Stitches from the armhole inwards for 16 stitches, and this time I'm using the long edge of the yarn, not the short edge like I did for the left side. You can also tell by checking out whether you're following an upside down V or a regular V. And when you're picking up the stitches, you can not go too far to the top. You can go back a little bit. Here are my German short rows on my right shoulder on the underside, and I googled German short row on the purl side and found a tutorial to remind me how to do it on this side. Wasn't too hard. 32 rows of right neck V increases, done. So now I have increased the right armhole and I'm ready to work on the body. So now I'm ready to knit the body, and I will use the circular needles as circular needles now. And I'll pick up 1 stitch in between the V in the front, 8 stitches under each armhole. So now we're back on the circular needles and the body is increasing. Measuring from the top back neck where I cast on, I've got about 8 centimeters to go. So after getting the back length right, I changed my circular needles to the smaller ones, and now I am doing a knit purl all the way around for 4 centimeters. So I need to work out whether the length is too short before I keep adding more ribbing. Stop. So my ribbing is going to be about 8 centimeters long to account for my long torso, but I think it's going to be a happy mistake. And I stop knitting the ribbing at the point where I put the marker under the underarm spot earlier on. Just checking the final length, which I'm happy with. So my Italian tubular bind off or cast off method is not looking great at all, and I'm not going to worry about perfecting that. I'm just going to go to a very simple cast off method instead. So I'm just knitting 2 and then getting that first stitch and pulling it over the second and repeating. So you get this kind of, I guess it's a plaited kind of edge. So now I just need to do the ribbing around the neckline and the armholes. To pick up stitches for the ribbing around the neck, I'm going to pick up where it transitions from where the increased rows were to where the cast on was. So I'm going to pick it up from where the start of that cast on is. So I've got the right side of the garment facing me, I've got the yarn on the left, and I've got the tail of the yarn on the right, and I am using 3.5mm needles. I realised I picked up my stitches in the wrong spot. I actually needed to pick them up in the actual V's, not the upside down V. This cast on for the neck ribbing didn't work because of the incorrect spacing of the cast on stitches, but the clip's been kept to show what not to do. I think it's quite difficult to see the correct spots to pick up stitches from around the neckline. Okay, so now I have recast on 172 stitches. It was supposed to be 174, but apparently casting on a few stitches too many or few makes little difference, so I'm going with 172. I've got 3 markers here, one where the V-neck center point is, one where the casting on started, and I just did a little one here for the exact center back position. So after casting on, I have knit 1, purl 1 all the way around until I get to 1 stitch before that marked V center front position stitch. So work to 1 stitch before the center stitch, then slip 2 stitches knitwise. So go through the second stitch there as if to knit, but don't wrap the yarn around. Then pass the 2 stitches back over the stitch that was just knitted. So I've now knitted 2 rows of ribbing around the neckline, which I think is looking okay, but really important to remember here that if the last stitch before the double decrease is a purl stitch, the first stitch after the double decrease must also be a purl stitch to create symmetry. 6 rows of ribbing, 3 to go. Because of the error around the neckline right here, where I didn't keep one purl, one knit consistent somehow, I am now going to actually frog or pull back all of my stitches so I can perfect it. Torture. Okay, next what not to do is I've now cast on and redone all of the ribbing, but in the center front where the V is, when you're decreasing the stitches, I incorrectly just transferred the 2 stitches across to the other needle. You actually have to knit them across to the other needle and then continue the decrease. Be patient. The Italian bind off. I just look at the first 2 only stitches. In this case, it's a knit and then it's a purl. In this case, when the purl's the second stitch in and the knit is the first, I go around the back with my needle. I go in between these 2 stitches and I actually knit the purl. And I pull it back around the back. So I've knitted the purl. Then I'm coming around the front again and I'm going to knit the first stitch. So I'm knitting the knit, which is the first stitch. And then I'm going to pull the first stitch off the needle. Done. Now, the next option is I've got a purl and a knit here. This time I'm going to purl the knit, the second in stitch once. I'm going to come back to the first stitch and purl the first stitch. And now that first stitch is pulled over the edge and I just repeat that. So this time I've got knit and a purl. So for this one I go through, go around the back and I knit the purl and so on. So now it's time to do the ribbing for the 2 armholes. Here is the plan for working out dividing up my 142 stitches for my arm. So here I have begun to pick up stitches and I've divided up my armhole into 4 and already I've got 34 stitches here and I am picking up one in every row, not just the V's, every row. So in my armhole, I've managed to cast on an extra 15 stitches. So I've just added in some extra markers and I'm going to slink out those extra stitches evenly as I am knitting. So now I've finished the ribbing on one sleeve and I'm going to cast off using the Italian bind off. Then I'll cast on for the second sleeve and do the same thing. Now I have knitted the ribbing on my second armhole and I did make sure I kept count using this row counter.